Come on, baby. Oh, yeah. Taking me out to sea. Got one. Okay. Very nice. Very nice. Very, very nice. Wow. Think about that. Freaking day. But finally paid off. Welcome to another episode of Casting Across Texas. Before I get started, I want to go ahead and send a quick shout out to my buddy, my high school buddy actually, Les. Les is with Lone Star Pioneering. And now Lone Star Pioneering is a great channel if you're looking to learn about a self-sustained lifestyle, things such as growing your own vegetable garden, raising chickens, and also beekeeping as well. Les and his subscribers have done a great job in supporting me, and I'm well up over 1,000 as far as my subscriber numbers at this point, and I appreciate all your help. Now, before I go on, I want to remind you all, be sure to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, hit the like button, and definitely leave a comment. For comments, if you have a question, maybe you want to ask me a little bit about the topic I'm going to be talking about today, or any question related to any of my past videos or any of my kayak equipment or anything like that, feel free. Also, if you have a specific lure or technique that you like to use, let me know about that. I'd be curious to know, and maybe it's something we can talk about in future videos. So today what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to go ahead and talk about one of my favorite techniques, and that would be drop shot fishing.
Some details in it that are unlike every other time Jesus heals someone in the Bible. Go deeper. Watch this entire message.
Nice. Short but fat, and he's got his tail is kind of distorted and messed up, but still it's a fatty. Not bad. So the first thing we're going to see here is a picture of a standard drop shot presentation. And the way this is going to be set up is you're going to have your hook tied on in a manner that's going to be presented horizontally. And then below that is going to be your sinker. Now the leader length between the hook and the sinker is going to vary depending on your situation, but a standard leader length is typically going to be 18 to 24 inches. Again, that will vary depending on your situation, but that's pretty much the standard. The way you're going to want to present your lure is the picture I have here actually is showing a nose hook type setup, and that's pretty standard. But again, there is going to be some variations on how you can do that, and we'll talk more about that. But an example would be maybe a Texas rig style hookup, or even wacky style. So there's a lot of options for you as far as how you are going to hook those lures, I should say, to the hook. The first time I remember using the drop shot and having a lot of success was back on, I was on a spring break trip with my family back in 2020, and I was fishing on Lake Bastrop. That's a lake here in Central Texas. I was fishing in my kayak, and I was fishing it where it was right above the grass, and I was having a lot of success. In fact, that was probably one of the most successful bass fishing days I had ever had up to that point. So with that, it did help build a lot of confidence, and from that point on, it has become my confidence, my go-to technique. You know, there are a lot of reasons that I like to use the drop shot. First of all, it's a technique where the lure is going to be off the bottom of the water of the lake. Now, what I mean is a lot of the waters that I fish around here in Central Texas, especially around the Austin area, a lot of them do have soft bottoms, muddy bottoms, and things like that. And with that being the case, most of the time the bass are not going to be right on the bottom. So this is a great technique where you can keep it, 6 inches from the bottom up to, 24 inches, whatever it is. It really varies depending on what the situation is. Another thing I like is that it's a technique that's very flexible and it works in almost every scenario. I like to fish from the bank as well as from my kayak, and the drop shot works in both cases really well. Another thing is that anytime I'm fishing, no matter what technique I'm using, whether it be a crankbait, swim bait, anything like that, if anything else is not working, I always know that I can go to the drop shot and it's going to be pretty much guaranteed to catch me some fish. And finally is flexibility. Now, what I mean by flexibility is anything from leader length to the weight of the sinkers that I'm using. Everything is easy to adjust using the drop shot technique, especially the way I have it set up. It allows me to fish it in shallow water, such as I would in the spring, and then also fish it in deep water like I would in the summer. There's one. Come on. It's been a long morning, but I finally got one. A good fight too. Now let's go ahead and talk a little bit about the equipment that I use. Now, quick disclaimer before I start this. This is what I use. This is kind of meant to give you a baseline. Obviously, if you already have some of this equipment, that's great. If not, you can work with what you have. But in this case, what I use is the only true combo that I have in my arsenal of bass fishing equipment, and this was actually a combo that was purchased as a combo by my son and daughter-in-law a few years ago. So I'll make sure I give them credit for that. That was a Father's Day gift. But what it is a Lew's Mock Smash combination rod and reel. This is a spinning combo. Now, what it consists of is a 7-foot medium power rod. And then the reel again is a spinning reel, and it is a 6:4-to-1 gear ratio reel. Now I think the speed on that is pretty good. I had some slower reels I used in the past and didn't actually work as well for me. The other thing is that with the fast action, it does a better job than some of the softer rods that I've used for this technique. So I really do prefer that fast action. Another thing is this is a really sensitive combo, so I really enjoy using it, and it's the only setup that I use for all of my drop shot fishing. The line that I use is 8-pound fluorocarbon. Now, what this means is, in this case, since I'm using 8-pound, I got to be really finessey when I'm pulling in fish, especially the big fish. Now, it can be done. In fact, one of the biggest fish that I caught last year, one of the biggest bass I caught, was at Decker Lake. In fact, if you've watched my top 10 videos, this was my #1 fish for last year. So if you haven't watched it, be sure to go back and watch it. But again, the reason I wanted to mention that is because with 8 pounds, you do have to be a little bit more careful and not horse those fish in. But it works great because may or not make a difference, but to me it does. Having the confidence that fluorocarbon line, light line, has a lot less visibility than maybe if you had a heavier line that you were using. So for my hook, I like to use a VMC size 2/2/0 standout hook. This hook is specifically designed for drop shot. I'm going to show a picture here that gives you an idea of why. It does a great job of holding out the lure in a horizontal presentation. So that's probably the biggest reason. It's easy to tie to. Now, this is the one case where I use a Palomar knot for fluorocarbon. A lot of times you'll hear not to hear, you don't want to use Palomar with fluorocarbon because what it does is it cuts into itself. But this is a scenario where I do use Palomar knots. And the reason I use the 2/0 hooks is in the past when I first started, I used smaller hooks. I would use the size 1 or size 2, and a lot of times I would lose fish because there wasn't enough room in the hook to actually be able to hold the lure and grab the bass. So I moved up to a larger hook, and I've had great success with those after I've done that. And that's what I've been using probably for the last 2.5 years. These VMC standout hooks are great hooks for the drop shot technique. For my sinkers, I like to use drop shot sinkers. The ones I use are actually the long cylindrical shaped ones. Now, the thing to keep in mind with the sinkers that I use is you don't actually tie the lure or the sinker to the line. What happens is they have a little metal piece that pinches to the line, and the good thing about that is it allows you to have a lot more flexibility in your sinker. In your leader length. It's really easy to adjust those according to whatever depth of water that you're fishing. So I definitely prefer those. The sizes I use are the 1/16, I want to say 1/16, 1/4 ounce, and the 3/8 ounce. Now, what size sinker is going to depend on the depth of the water. Obviously, when I'm fishing in deeper water, I'm going to use a 3/8 because it helps get that lure down there, that presentation get down there a lot faster. Great deep water. And then in most cases, probably about 99% of the cases where I'm fishing drop shot, I'm going to be fishing the 1/4 ounce. And again, I like these leaders because since they're not tied on, they're really easy to adjust the leader length. How do I fish it? So what I'm doing is either casting it, or like I would any other lure, or dropping it straight down. Now, obviously, if you're fishing from the bank, dropping it straight down isn't going to be an option. So that's something you're going to want to use when you're on a boat, or in my case, on a kayak. But if you're on the bank, cast it out there like you would any other lure. How far you cast is going to really depend on your scenario, your situation. But once the lure is in the water, what I want to do is I will pull the rod up just enough to where I feel the weight of the lure, or excuse me, not the lure, the sinker. And then once I get to that point, I want to impart the action that I feel is going to be good for that day that I'm fishing. Now, what I mean is, if you're in a situation where there's a lot of wind on the water, you obviously don't have to do a lot of action yourself. It's going to be taken, that's going to be taken care of by nature, the current, the water current, and things like that. In a situation where it's a calm day, you might need to impart a little bit more action yourself. What you got to do is really just listen to what the fish are telling you. What is getting you bit. That's what you're going to want to do, and continue that. As long as it works. Listening to the fish is obviously going to be a great point anytime you're fishing, any technique that you're using. So now one of the things I'm going to be doing is, again, I have a sensitive rod, and so I don't immediately set the hook. I usually wait about 1 or 2 seconds before I set the hook. And in most of my videos, you'll see where I can actually feel that bite, and then I'll set the hook. When I do set the hook, I like to do a sweeping motion. This is something I learned from one of my favorite YouTubers, Gene Jensen, who's also known as Fluke Master. He says that in the drop shot, you want to do a sweeping motion to the side. So you'll see me do that most of the time. Now, even with that, there are exceptions, and a lot of what I'm meaning is if you're in a situation where you're fishing straight down, a lot of times I'll just pull straight up, and that's a great retrieval technique in those cases. But again, listen to the fish, see what works for you, and you'll do great. So where do I fish it? Where are some cases where the drop shot is going to work for me? So a few cases are going to be when I'm fishing shallow grass. I like to have my lure hanging just above the grass, and that's where having that variable Leader length is going to be great. So depending on the depth of the grass, you can adjust that. I also like to fish it just on the outside edges of grass beds and reeds. And then another one, and this is a scenario I honestly don't have a lot of around my local area, but when I do get a chance, I like to fish it next to stumps and wood cover, especially when I have that available to me. Got one. It's a largemouth. First one of the day. I'll give you one hint or one guess as to what I caught it on. Yep. Not bad. Probably about a, what, pound, maybe half a pound. And then finally, slopes and drop-offs. This is great, especially in the summer. One of my top 3 catches earlier this year was during the summer, and I was in Lake Pflugerville. This was actually deeper water. In this case, I want to say 15 feet, and I was fishing it just on the edge of a slope, a kind of a steep drop. So let's talk lures. So many options when it comes to drop shot specific lures. A lot of companies out there do make them. Now, one of the things that these things, a lot of these lures are going to have in common between them is going to be the length. Typically, you're going to see anywhere from 4 inches, 3 inches, and even shorter than that. But as far as the types of lures that I like to use, probably the main one that I've had the most success with over the last several years, and this is really the one that I kind of started out with and got most familiar with when I first started using this technique, was the Yumdinger. This is a 4-inch worm, and it's a stick worm. What I like to do is, this is the one case where having it set up in a wacky style presentation has brought me a lot of success. Now, what you're going to do in most cases is you're going to nose hook these lures through the end, and they'll just kind of hang off your hook. Now, this is a case where that VMC standout hook works great because these lures are designed to have a horizontal presentation. So having that hook that's designed to keep it in that format is going to be great for doing that for you. Another disclaimer I think is important is that while a majority of these lures are going to be shorter, it's not uncommon that you can switch to a larger lure and have success as well. For me, I've had success in the past where I've switched to the caffeine shad full-size plastic jerkbait. Anyway, so a lot of these, some of the ones that I've used rather, is going to be I mentioned the Yumdinger. I've used the Strike King Dream Shot. I've used the Strike King Half Shell. The Robo Worm is another great one. And then one that I've really started using recently, had some success with, is the Missile Baits Bomb Shot. What about colors? So this is going to be pretty straightforward. In the spring pre-spawn and spawn period, majority of the time you're going to want to use red. This is what I use. The reason that red is good for this time of year is it mimics crawfish, which is going to be one of their main forage species during the spawn and pre-spawn. Also, you can use natural colors. The natural colors are always great where you have a situation in the case of having bluebird skies or clear water. And then next is going to be chartreuse colored lures, or anything with chartreuse in it. Another option there is a bright color like bubblegum. I've had success with bubblegum trick worms, and I've had them rigged wacky style. You can see me catching a couple fish like that in one of my earlier videos as well. And then The last is going to be dark lures. Now you're going to use these dark lures in the scenarios where you have low light, also for nighttime fishing, and anytime you have really, really stained waters, the dark lures are going to work for you in those cases. So that's all. That's all I have for this video. I hope this information has been helpful for you. I hope you also get a chance to hopefully put some of this into practice here pretty soon. I know here in Central Texas it's still pretty cold, but doesn't mean you can't get out in the water. This is actually a great technique for use during the winter time. In fact, one of the biggest bass I ever caught was about 2 years ago, and was just a few days before Christmas. And I caught it in about 5 foot of water, and the water I want to say was in the upper 30s, maybe low 40s. But the point is, it can be, this is a technique that can be used year round. There's no time of the year where it won't work for you. And again, it's also a technique where since this is my go-to technique. If nothing else works, if all else fails, I always switch to the drop shot, and can turn a lousy day into a great day. As always, I know there's a lot of specific situations and scenarios that I might not have talked about. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to post any questions, any comments, and I'll be sure to do my best to look at those and get back with you with some answers. As always, thanks for watching. Blessings to all of you, and we'll see you next time.